Hey there, and welcome to this episode of the show, where today we are diving into some questions that I've received on Instagram. So really get into the heart of what people wanted to know about health, nutrition, fitness, training, all various different sorts of things. So I'm going to right now scroll through my phone, scroll through all of these different questions, and then rattle you off some expert answers. Now, first one comes in from Lutz 2020. Hope I'm saying that right. Now, the question here is, how do you keep up a routine when you are sick, aka bad allergies? So the first thing I would say is kind of being sick and maybe allergies, probably two separate different things, two separate things to think about when it comes to trying to stick to your routine. Now, I'm assuming when it says routine, you're probably thinking more about your training rather than nutrition per se. Now, if it comes down to training and you're sick, it really depends on what your illness is. Now, clearly, I am no fucking doctor, so you should not take any medical advice from me, nor am I going to give you any. Generally though, what I do for myself is I kind of just go on how I feel. If I feel like absolute dog shit, am I going to go to the gym and train? Probably not. If I've got maybe just like a head cold, runny nose, something like that, do I feel like I can get a good workout in is then the next question I ask myself. If the answer is yes, you can get an absolutely smashing workout in without fucking compromising your recovery, then absolutely go do it, but maybe knock back the intensity a little bit. But then if you're thinking like, I've got like a chesty cough or I feel like nauseous, should you really go to the gym? Probably not. Again, like I think I've said on a previous podcast as well, if you've got like a dicky tummy and you're on the borderline of shitting yourself, probably the gym where you're actually going to strain and then potentially fucking curl one out the back door while you're doing a squat is probably not the best environment for you to be in. And I always think that in most cases, you kind of really know when you should and shouldn't train. You know when you feel like, I'm feeling like absolute shit. I just don't want to get out of bed. If you're at that stage, do you really want to go to the fucking gym? Probably not. Now, the second part of that question was all about allergies. Now, allergies are like hugely different because allergies affect people. And I'm assuming here, like we're coming into the summer season, so maybe it's allergies in relation to like hay fever and shit like that. Again, I'm no expert, I'm no doctor, but I would say is again, you've got to go on how you feel because allergies are very individual in terms of how intense they are for each person. Now, some people, when they get hay fever, almost it kind of renders them not able to do much at all because eyes are streaming, constantly sneezing, all various different things going on. So again, you've got to find your way through these different types of things. And, if there's medication that you can take to help you with those symptoms so that you can train, then do that. But you've got to find it, kind of navigate your own way through it. The allergies is very difficult for me to say you should absolutely 100% do this or do that. It's just going to be so individual that it's almost impossible for me to give you an exact specific answer on that one. Cool. So now the next question came in from R. Bisto. Now, for those international listeners won't have a clue what that fucking username is all about, but R. Bisto is basically like from an advert which was all about gravy, which is, again, I don't know, if you get gravy outside of the UK, I don't know, it's like a sauce type thing you put on meat and veg. Anyway, so the question came in here is, what are the best ingredients to look for when buying protein powder? Now, my answer to this is going to seem like very much a sarcastic response, but in no way is meant that way, and no way meant to talk down to this particular question. But the ingredient you should be looking for in a protein powder is protein. You really shouldn't be looking for anything else. Now, a lot of supplements and a lot of supplement companies may be kind of for advertising purposes to try and lure you in. They try and say, well, it's got extra of this or more of this or got shit ton of BCAAs in it and shit like that. The answer really is that, if a company really overblows the marketing side of things to try and lure you in, it's probably a shit product, to be honest. And if you just look at the protein content of that particular protein powder, that's really what you want to go off. So when you look at the serving size, so let's say the serving size is at 30 grams, If the protein in relation to that serving size is quite high, so maybe like talking 24, 25, 26 grams of protein, that's probably a good product. The things you should be looking out for is maybe on the back, when you're looking at ingredients, is if it says proprietary blend, that basically means they put a lot of different protein sources in it, which are shit, and they're not going to tell you how much of each one is in there. So it'll say like proprietary blend containing whey, concentrate, soy, hemp, whatever, and it won't tell you whether the whey is the most or whether, you know, soy is the highest or whatever it is. Basically, it's just an amalgamation of shit to kind of basically keep the price down so they can make higher profit margins. So that's what I would be focusing on. Most of you are probably going to pick a whey protein. Whether you pick concentrate or isolate is neither here nor there really. Maybe if you are lactose intolerant, you can go for an isolate, because a whey isolate has the lactate removed, so you still can have that even if you have a lactose intolerance. But other than that, I would be looking for just high protein content. I wouldn't be looking for a bunch of other ingredients that really aren't going to do fucking much of anything for anybody. That would be my answer to that question. Now, Arbisto came in with a bunch of fucking questions, which is cool. So I'm going to rattle through all of the questions right now. So the second question was, would squatting with the bar on your chest be as effective? I'm assuming that means as effective as it is on your back. Now, I would say that squatting with your bar on your chest, I'm again assuming this is basically a front squat. Now, front squat versus a barbell back squat is very, very individual as to whether that has a significant difference in terms of how it affects which muscles you're working to which degree. For a lot of people, and especially that common sort of thought process, is that a front squat will be more quad dominant and a back squat will be slightly less quad dominant, bit more hip glute dominant. Now, that really general rule maybe applies to a percentage of the world's population, but it may not apply specifically to you. So it could be that just the placement of the bar doesn't make much difference at all to whether your squat becomes more quad dominant or not. It may do, it may not. So the answer to this question is kind of like, what's the goal? So if the goal is to activate more quad, then a front squat could be more effective if the positioning of that bar affects which muscles get worked more within your version of a squat. Now, basically the way you kind of determine that is you'll probably need to take a video from side view of you actually doing a squat. Now, when you take that video from a side view, if you were to draw an imaginary line up through your ankle and then draw up through your body, you basically create the line of force. It's basically gravity. Now, when you then sort of perform the squat, your ass will go back from that line and your knee will go forward from that line. Now, the distance between the line and your knee and the line and your ass is basically your two lines where you're judging which muscles are working more. Now, if the line between the line of force and your knee is the longest, that means your quad is working the most in that particular exercise. If the line to your hip or your ass is the longest, then it's going to be your glutes and so on that are actually doing the majority of the work. And then you can assess whether you put the bar on your back or whether you put it on your front, if that changes those different lengths of those different lever arms, as we would call them. So if putting the bar on your chest and doing a front squat creates a longer line to your knee, you know that that exercise has now become slightly more quad dominant than a barbell back squat. And if your goal is to build quads, it might be advantageous for you therefore to have some front squatting in your particular program. But it really comes down to what's your goal and what is the sort of body mechanics and the exercise mechanics behind that particular movement for that particular person. So hopefully that answered that question. Now we're going to move on to a couple of other questions as well. So this one was a bit of a strange one, I'll say. Not what I've ever had before, so I thought it was worth answering on the podcast, which was, what's your favorite non-regular exercise, i.e. a gym movement you only do if you have time? So then I had to really think about this one, because basically I would say that kind of how my training is structured at the moment is just very simplistic. I stick to 4-5 exercises per workout, and I do them hard. So I don't really have any exercises that I don't do because I don't have time, because I don't do that many exercises. And I think this is an important point, that a lot of people coming into fitness think that they have to do more and more exercises. Now, what you'll realize is that the more advanced you get, probably the less exercises you do. You focus on really getting 4 or 5 exercises per workout absolutely nailed. And if you are nailing those exercises, your execution is right, your form is good, you're lifting enough load through those exercises, you probably don't want to do more than 4 or 5 exercises. But I would say that if for any reason I had to drop exercises from my workout or anything like that, it would always be arm exercises. Arm exercises leave the program first, mainly because your triceps are getting a lot of work when you're doing all your pressing movements, and your biceps are getting a good amount of work when you're doing all your pulling movements. So I always feel like any sort of arm work, specific arm work, if I haven't got time for that, that would be the point where I would kind of ditch that sort of stuff. So any sort of arm exercises would be thrown by the wayside. Also, maybe when I'm not necessarily too focused on it, I'm always a slacker for not doing too much ab work. But that's because, once you've built up a degree of abdominal muscle, it's very easy to maintain it, because if you are bracing during all the other exercises, you're getting some isometric contractions on your abs anyway. So it's very difficult for you to just lose all of your abs together. So I kind of never really focus too much on that. Maybe I should do a little bit more, but I kind of don't really. Cool. So another question that came in was, what are your thoughts on Huell? Juice plus but cooler, or genuinely good? It's shit, is what I would say. Now, I've done a podcast on Are Meal Replacements a Scam? So you can go and listen to the full version of that. But I actually had an online back and forth argument with the CEO of Huell, actually. I didn't realize he was the CEO until I checked out his Instagram halfway through the debate. But essentially, Huell is shit, because the claim that he was making in our back and forth debate was that Huell has been designed so that you get all of the essential vitamins and minerals in one shake, and therefore that's all you need. It's this complete food source that you don't need anything else, and you just have shakes. So I kind of took umbrage with that and said, well, I can't see how someone is going to just have shakes all fucking day for the rest of their life. It's not going to be a sustainable way of doing things. He said, well, this is how how other way are you going to get all the vitamins and minerals in your diet and all this sort of stuff? Then I went to look at his website specifically to pull out some of the key information. Now, it turns out that you only get the recommended daily allowance of the vitamins and minerals that you need if you have about 4 shakes per day. And if you have 4 shakes per day, you're in excess of 2,000 calories per day. Now, for a lot of people, they cannot diet on 2,000 calories and lose weight and lose body fat. So, and for a lot of people, they'll put on weight at that. So yes, you might be getting all these vitamins and minerals, but you're having 4 fucking shakes a day and no real food, and you are probably, for a lot of people, going to put on weight at that amount of food. So for me, him saying that, yes, on... and the other thing is that on the website it says have 2 shakes per day and then 1 meal. So already you're having half the amount of the vitamins and minerals that you actually need in order to be as quote unquote healthy as they said. So for me, Huell, really fucking bad. Juice Plus, really fucking bad. Don't do it. It's not sustainable. No one in their right mind is going to have fucking shakes for the rest of their life and no other food. That's what I would kind of say. That's my view. If you disagree with it, I don't fucking care. Anyway, last question was, am I a fan of wrestling? Now, this is a bit of a weird one, but I would say I used to be a fan of wrestling. Back in the days with The Rock, back in the days with Stone Cold Steve Austin, I used to be very much into wrestling and things like that. I've kind of maybe not watched it for many, many years. But I do appreciate the athleticism. I don't mind the fact that it's fake. That doesn't bother me at all. I think it's quite good. It's just basically freaking like a soap opera, but with fighting. So it's kind of cool. I actually don't really like the fighting part. I like all of the talking on the mic and, you know, them saying sort of cool shit. That's kind of like what I liked about it. So maybe a fan of old school wrestling, just kind of not really watched it. Maybe because, you know, fucking you can't get it on regular TV these days. But anyway, so am I a fan of wrestling? Kind of ish, but not so much these days. Anyway, so I hope this little sort of deviation from the regular sort of topics we get on the podcast was of interest for you. Hopefully you got some cool information, little nuggets of information that you can put into your own training and nutrition. And if you did, come and let me know on Instagram, as usual, at iron_paradise_fitness. And please submit your own questions, because this is where the hotbed of topics comes from. All of the topics that you listen to, all of the 170 odd episodes that have been created so far are from your feedback. So if you have a specific question, a specific problem that you think, well, I really could do with the answer to this, come and let me know, because I guarantee if you've got a question, if you've got a problem, an obstacle that you're struggling to break down, there's thousands of other people that are in exactly the same position as you and would benefit from that answer. So head over to Instagram, drop your question in a DM to me, and I'm glad to turn that into an awesome episode of the show. And if you want more information about fat loss, building muscle, and some free guides on how to calculate calories and a free training program, head over to ironparadisefitness.com for more information. I will put a link in the notes. But for now, all I'll say is keep living the lean life, and I'll see you for the next episode of the show.